Alright, I guess we can start a couple minutes early since we have time. Just making sure 8 p.m. we are set. Alright, I'm cool with that. So I just wanted to work on this last final thumbnail and just call it a day and maybe even post it, God forbid. But I hope everyone's doing good. Yeah, man, just chilling. Sorry. My phone is plugged in. It's like importing all the stuff that I don't need to import. But we have that. Okay, yeah, we have this. So this is helpful. And this tree. Where did all this come from? Oh, okay, this is that right there. Got it. So we had all this from the previous one. Sweet. Alright, I'm cool with that. And looks like this is a layer for what? There's no pixels in there. So we can just use this layer then for starters then. Why not? Right? Why not? And then we'll do that. We'll do some layer management real quick. So this is number 1. This is 2. I mean, it's already there, but I just don't want to have it called group. So actually, this should be 1. This should be 2. So let's actually change that. Right. No, I don't want that. Thank you. This is going to be 2. That's going to be 3. And then that's going to be 4. So, not that it matters, but, you know, whatever. Okay, let's, is this going to work? I'm honest, this will probably work. I think this is fine. This is cool. Why is it, oh, I'm at 10%, like a noob. So I have this thing that's giving me a little bit of information, so I'm going to try to use that. You know, we might even get into a little bit of photos now. I think might be something that I may want to do. What up, Fitz? And that's what I'm thinking about is, you know, do I want to go into some kind of photo element here? Which I'm thinking might be kind of cool to do. So this would mean not to get a little bit darker. So actually, I'm thinking maybe one could be a little bit more of a snow element, which would be kind of interesting to see how we would do that if we were. But if that's the case, this would have to be a lot lighter. So this would have to be something like this. Yeah, like that kind of value. But I guess we'll come to that problem we'll deal with that problem when we get there, you know. But actually, maybe we could do it like that. Like that could be kind of cool. Because then you could easily kind of throw in like, you know, texture on this thing, kind of like this, right? You could start to kind of, you know, do something like that. Or now it's kind of like some kind of tree or rock or something like that. But we'll leave that alone for now. But for now, what we want to just do is probably just kind of block in the shapes that we want. I think that's probably the most important thing here. You know, do we want a little bit of some curvature, that kind of stuff? Like we kind of already have one right here, which is kind of the same thing. So I don't know if that's even worth like even doing. But what we do have is the proportions. Let's just stick with the proportions for now. And then we can figure out how we want to edit that. So we'll put one behind that, and we'll just start going from there. Mr. Longarm. There you go. What's up, Longarm? How's it going? Alright, so I should probably... So my question is, I did this a while ago, right? I made this set a while ago, and I don't know what I did with it. I don't know what my original plans were when I made this. So, like, that's for proportions, and already I don't like them. So I gotta think about what I thought my intentions might have been when I originally did this. So, you're not. Why are you whispering? You don't have to whisper.
Because you're recording.
I know I'm recording, but you whispering just makes it awkward. All right, my wife is home, and she's afraid to be she's afraid to have her voice heard on the stream, which is hilarious. Okay. So that probably is this. I'm going to erase that. Okay, cool. So yeah, I don't know if I like this at all. So this will make it the same value for now, just so I can see it. So when in doubt, right, we're just gonna kind of, so it looks very, very similar, and I'm not sure if that's what I want. And then this guy, we probably have to make it a little bit lighter. There you go. So is that what I want? So if that's the case, I'm thinking maybe instead I want to just make this one big giant shape, kind of like that. So having that negative space, I think, is nice. Or kind of not having that negative space is nice, right? Because now I feel like it flows a lot more. So now you can start maybe looking at, do I want to add in an extra, like, do I want to put this in front of it? So if that's the case, you know, maybe we're thinking of maybe lightening up this little, making this a little bit darker. All right, so now this feels like it could be something a lot more visually interesting. And of course I have to delete everything here. So there we go. See, boom. So like from there, that's pretty good. Like in terms of like a thumbnail, I like where that's going. And then above that, let's make sure you put it directly below. We could probably sample the same kind of color. And maybe even do, you know, I was looking at kind of like Logan Prashaw's work recently, and he had some really just cool like clouds in his pieces that just had like this really nice kind of just juicy kind of setup that I thought was like really interesting. And maybe I want to try to kind of get some of that in the work a little bit. So this is me, you know, trying to kind of replicate some of that overall feeling that he had, some of that juiciness. And I do believe some of it did require a little bit of a mixer brush if I had to guess, though I'm not like 100% sure. So, but we're gonna try to maybe experiment here just a little bit and see if we can kind of mimic some of that. Yeah, that's the guy. His work is dope. And I'm wondering if I just do this first too. So he had some like iPad paintings in Procreate that I was really digging, in terms of like just what the pieces, like what the forms were doing, and I thought they were like really interesting. And so I'm thinking like, okay, what if I can kind of maybe mimic a little bit of that kind of painterly value. Let me see if I can find it actually. So, because he recently posted it. I think he works at Weta, and he's like one of my favorite artists, like of 2020, that he just keeps posting up like dope shit. So I just love a lot of this, like the softer kind of super soft like form as it turns, right? It's a very, very soft edge. Then you get some of these hard edges here, then you get some of these kind of lost edges, and you get a lot of this little texture. A lot of that stuff, just the contrast here and there, where an edge is super sharp, and then it kind of just blends off. Really cool stuff in general. I really, really like it. And I'm wondering if I can kind of internalize a little bit of that in the work. So I imagine if I'm looking at his work right now, I imagine that I need to kind of find a way to get some of these softer values in here. So I'm kind of doing it right now, at the same time finding these hard values too, or hard edges. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying right now. And so I'm like, how do I get some of these hard and soft edges, as well as core shadows? So that's really interesting too, because the core shadows are really nice. So a nice little darker value right here would be really, really helpful. Boom, boom. Just because it's creating these nice little core shadows as well. So there's a lot of stuff here that's just visually super interesting. And I'm like, I want I want to internalize like all that shit if I can. So that's what I'm trying to do a little bit here, and I'm just trying to do my best here to get a little bit of some of that juice, as people would call it, in my own piece. So it seems like the way to achieve that would be a little bit of the mixer brush. Now, the only thing is he was using Procreate, right? So I know for a fact I'm probably not going to be able to get everything in there the same way, but I'm wondering how I can kind of internalize a little bit of that. I apologize for the beeping right now. My wife is fucking cooking, which is, first world problems, right? My wife is cooking probably like a really beautiful, awesome dinner. And then I can kind of mix in, right, a little bit of this, something like that, right? And something like that is always nice too, because now we're kind of we're really messing around with this idea of like kind of a texture kind of brush here, where I'm just kind of flicking it just like ever so slightly. And then I'm wondering too if painting subtractively can kind of get me that same kind of feel, you know what I mean? We're taking kind of a super big brush here, and we're kind of just mixing and matching here. So it seems like if I were trying to achieve this, I'd want to use like maybe 3 different brushes. One for kind of the edges to kind of create some of those painterly edges, and then one brush to kind of create some of these softer edges, and then maybe one for the softer. I mean, it's one for soft and one for hard. So I could go like that. I could switch to this brush, soften it up a lot, like so. Maybe switch to my mixer brush, which, goddamn it, is not set up already because I'm a noob. For some reason, my hotkeys are reset, and I don't know why. So, you know what? I guess we have time, right? That's why I'm here. So let me just fix that right now. So I only have like a couple of different hotkeys, to be honest. And reason being is I don't like to rely on a lot of hotkeys, because then there's always going to be a time where I have to go to someone's place or like do work remotely, and I just don't like having to have too much setup when it comes to that kind of stuff. So like in general, I try to keep my hotkeys down to a minimum, or I wait till like the point where I'm like, okay, I really need a hotkey for this. So why is it acting like that? That's weird. What the? Why is it curving? Don't curve. Just go straight. I guess that's really weird. It's like the Wacom is like catching at first, and then it kind of jumps. All right, we'll leave it alone. I don't really care. All right, so the only thing that I ever change is I just make my my blending brush A. That's the only thing I ever change. So mixer brush, sorry. I just make it A. I forget what A is originally. It's like something else, but I think it's the path selection tool, and I never use any of those things. So, I mean, I do, but not to the point where I need it as a hotkey. So I just switched that out to A because it's next to B. So then mixer brush tool is way easier. And then my application menu, I don't know why that's not there either, but I just make my flip horizontal F1. And there we go. And then apparently that's the help button. So I don't need the help button. And then accept it, hit OK. So now if I'm painting, this makes it way easier, right? Because now I can make the stroke that I want. I can get a little bit of a core shadow or something. And then if I want to, I can hit A and then blend that all out. So that becomes way easier. And then back to my brush, we're back to it. So that's what I like to do. So, but we don't want to sit here and render a cloud all day, or do we? Because actually, I kind of do. But for the sake of argument, I think it's good to maybe not paint clouds all day long. I mean, I could, but I want to focus on this because I've already rendered this out way too much. So that's where the next problem begins. So we'll leave this for now, but at some point I kind of do want to come back to it. Like I do want to kind of go back in there and like make the clouds look like super juicy and stuff. But so far they look pretty juicy now. If I, you know, like they're not like super juicy, but they're okay. And you know, definitely I can throw in a little bit of a texture in there as well. So that's where a certain brush like this is one of my favorite brushes you can use for a little bit of texture right there. You can kind of see it there. If I gotta zoom in probably. A little brush like this is great for texture. It's kind of a noisy brush, and like that's really, really good. You just have to kind of control it a little bit. So sometimes a little bit of noise is nice because it kind of just pushes everything back. So by default, I'm an idiot though. Like this brush by default like has the shape dynamics on it, and you don't want that. If I had to, like, I mean, actually you could have it on there. I just have to make it less pointy. Like whatever that is, the angle, what changes it? Yeah, you probably want it more like that of something. Like, yeah, because it hits that little point. It's a little like it's like a little, kind of like a wet condom thing, like a used condom, where it makes a little point, and I hate it. So I don't want that. You gotta kind of blend that stuff out. All right, cool. I think we have talked enough about juicy clouds for one day. So let's work our way back to getting a little bit more of a texture on something. So if you go to this guy right here, yeah, no one wants that shit, and it generally like upsets me that like it's like even like a thing. But you gotta remember, this isn't about us, right? Like Photoshop, they have other people to kind of worry about than what we want. So, you know, maybe I can kind of make some light in here, some lighter areas. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what I was when I originally. I have to go back and probably watch the older stream to kind of figure out like what the hell I was thinking about when I made these little strokes. And so that's probably my own fault for not doing this so quickly. So, but ultimately, I think when we're that far back, I don't really care about like too much indication, because normally like all I'm really gonna do is just throw a gradation on it, and that means I'm just gonna go here and then just take like a darker color and just kind of go across it in a very, very light fashion, kind of like that. And that's all you really need, right, to kind of like really push it back. So I'm not too worried about, like, I just want this shape, whatever this is going to indicate, which to me is like either light or a road or something like that. I just want to have like just a really kind of nice rhythm to it, right? So you can kind of see the rhythm that I'm trying to go for here. So I'm trying to get this nice kind of tapered effect. Really hard to do, because if you make one mistake or you kind of go in the wrong direction, it kind of you'll get in this mode where you're just noodling all the time, and you don't want that, right? If you can avoid it. So trying to kind of take your time before you make a stroke, I think, is usually in your best interest. So so here's some soft noise that I can use. I'll just kind of do that. So maybe that's what I want, right? I want that soft noise little area. Maybe I can kind of lose this edge a little bit here if I want to. I don't know how much I want that, but see, like that's cool. Now, do I want to connect this guy is the next question. So there's that piece, And then there's this piece, which I feel like this piece should just be connected. So let's just connect it now, and then we'll call it a day. So all right, cool. And then what I'll have to do as well is when I make that piece, I'll have to go to everything before it and get rid of it. So yeah. So it's like not too bad. I mean, I don't know what I want to do with it. Like, you know, maybe I want to have some lighter values kind of coming through. It really depends, like, what I want to do with this space. So, you know, maybe we can use some lines here. So we used lines last time, and then maybe the lines might help us figure out where we want some of like the kind of pieces of rhythm to be. So, you work on a tablet or Cintiq. So I will share with you the things that I use in a second. Let me pull it up on a different screen and let me break it down. So let me go to my file, open, move this over, and go to a folder that will break down my equipment. So I'll use this little equipment thing here, and let me just kind of walk through it. So yeah, basic equipment. This is something that I show on my CGMA site, my class, because people kind of ask for it, but I mean it's not a big deal. So yeah, so that's my equipment that I use. So I use the Intuos Pro Pen and Touch. This is the second version of it that I like to use. There are newer versions. I just don't like them. So it's actually the cheaper version. So don't ask me why I like it. It's like a feel thing for me. I don't like the new ones though. The new ones have like a better cord situation and how you plug into it. You know that's kind of thing. Oh, don't worry about it, dude. I mean, it's a drawing, dude. I don't give a shit. So good question though. I mean, some people want to know this stuff, so who cares? And then Wacom pen art. I use a Wacom art pen, so that gives me that rotation thing. So if you ever see me doing this on my here, let me show you. Go back here. So if you ever see me kind of doing something on here where the pen can kind of rotate in different directions, kind of like this. So I can go this direction, I can go that direction, I can go that direction. That's the art pen, and that's really, really useful because then you can get better angles with the brush. And it's not the standard pen that comes with the Wacom tablet. You have to buy it separately. It's like $100. And then I just use an ultra sharp U304. It's a 30-inch monitor. I like it because it has like a built-in like color calibration thing. And then I just have like a nice monitor or a nice computer. It's all like tricked out. And then I have a drop box. And the drop box is nice because it's very, very easy to kind of move stuff back and forth. I have not used the art pen with the Cintiq before. To be honest, I haven't used a Cintiq in years. Just not my thing. I tried it out back in the day. I remember like our company got them one time that I was working for, and it was like a big deal because they were like, "Yo, we got these Cintiqs." And to be honest, like it just didn't fit me. Like it just I think the reason why it didn't fit me was because of the fact that I always zoomed in when I draw. So like when you're thinking about a Cintiq, right? If I were just to draw this out on red, when you have your computer, let's just say I draw like this is my computer screen, and then here is my tablet, right? Look at this perspective, bam. That's my pen. So normally if I want to zoom in on it, I can zoom in Photoshop, right? So the distance from my eye to the screen right now is probably like what? Probably like 1 foot. So it's like 1 foot. So if I want to zoom in, I can, I just zoom in on the tablet work like this, you know, whoops, you know, right? I can zoom in, I zoom out, but no matter what, I'm always 1 foot from the screen, no matter what. So even though I'm zooming in here, I'm still 1 foot from my tablet. I can do this back and forth, right? And that's how I scrub zoom. So there's never a time where I put my face closer to the screen, if that makes sense. I never like put my head like really, really close. Now, when you use a Cintiq, this is what I found myself doing a lot, was that on the Cintiq, since we're staring at a screen, I would find myself zooming in and then getting my head closer to the screen because it's almost like I'm drawing in my sketchbook. So when you draw in your sketchbook, and here's like my head, there's my ear, there's my nose, there's my eyes, right? There's my mouth. Instead of, let me move this, right? Instead of like just always staring at that same distance, I would get really, really close to it every single time. And that makes sense, right? Because when you're drawing on a sketchbook, when you want to get into the closer details, right, you can't zoom in traditionally because I draw a lot in my sketchbook, right? You just get it closer to your eye so that way you can make sure that you're really kind of getting in there and getting the same details. So the problem was I was doing both. I would zoom in on something really, really close, and then I would still move my head closer. So then at that point, I'm painting on pixels, and it felt very like unintuitive. So that's like the first reason why I don't like a Cintiq. Second reason why I don't like a Cintiq is I don't think it's very good for environments. I don't think it's an environment-based kind of tool in my opinion. So what that means is that like if I'm painting on a new canvas, right, and it kind of made my arm hurt too. I think that's what it was too, because I'm a weak person in general. I need to do more like reps, like more bicep curls, something. The cool thing about the Cintiq was that, or the cool thing about a Wacom tablet is that if I want to cover ground, it's way easier. If I want to make a big stroke, I can go like this, and I can cover the ground no matter what. I can make the brush really, really big. If I want to do that on a Cintiq, I have to use my whole arm, and I have to go all the way from one side to the other zoomed in, right? So that's the one thing I didn't like, is that it's 1-to-1. So if I want to make a big stroke or a big kind of flick of the wrist, like I have to use my whole arm because I'm drawing on pen and paper. Versus here, I can sit back really, really far to like this level of like kind of this level of like distance and kind of make like little strokes, and it's a really, really easy to do without having to like work too hard for it. So you can kind of see, right? And then I can go in there and then look at those strokes, and you know, vice versa. So that's why Cintiq's Wacom tablet is like for lazy people, and I'm lazy. So I can zoom out here and I can still cover a lot of ground, versus all the stuff I'd have to do if I want to like paint like a whole piece. I'd have to use my entire arm the entire time to cover all that ground, and so I don't want to do that. So it's not to say that Cintiqs are bad by any means. It's definitely a very personal preference. Now for life drawing, I love them. I think they're great. They're like really, really awesome. I love a lot of the texture that I can get from it, a lot of just that kind of stuff. It's dope. One of my favorite things to use for digital life drawing. But for general work, because my work is very much more environment based, not so much. So hopefully that kind of sheds my 2 cents on that. I might get into here a little bit of photo bashing, I think. So I haven't done it yet with any of these thumbnails, so it might be good to kind of relax and try out. But in the meantime, what I do want to do is I want to see if I can make some nice kind of some big moves here in terms of this. So I think what I want to do is, there we go. Oops, let me delete that. And let me make this guy a little bit lighter so we can kind of see it. So that's what I want to do. See? Whoops. There you go. So I just wanted to make that clarification here so I can see where something is sitting. Something like that. So I don't know if I'm gonna like actually use it or not, but I'm thinking some kind of nice light version would be pretty sick to use, like in this case, right? So that means kind of, again, painting in a very subtractive manner and kind of getting some of that nice kind of juicy shapes. I think it would be pretty tight, actually. So I'm wondering if that's like what I want to go for. Oh, what's up, Rishi? What's going on, dude? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out like what direction do I want the strokes to go in. So naturally, it's kind of this kind of crisscross kind of thing. So that's what I'm thinking about, like ultimately. And then do I really want to make it like, you know, I could go in here. I could throw in like a stamp, you know, like kind of a stamp texture, that kind of thing. Like that might be kind of cool to kind of really kind of sell this idea of like maybe something that's like slowly kind of deteriorating, right? We're thinking about kind of texture and detail. So something like that could be really, really cool. I'm not really sure yet, but that's what I want. Oh, new follower. I have no idea who followed me. It's Al. I can't even see that shit. What the hell? Sorry. It's, oh, I guess I'll never fucking know. Alice Tang. Alice Tang, yo, thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry, no one really ever follows me, so when I hear that sound, I freak the hell out because it scares me. Okay, so let's talk about using a photo in here. There's plenty of photos I can use. I've been looking at some. This camera uploads Twitch. I had some Australian desert pack that I got off of Gumroad, so maybe I could use something like that. Something like this might actually work a lot. Let's try it out and see what we can get from it. Now this one is like we'll make it black and white, obviously, so we don't have to worry about it. Hey, turn black and white. What the? Okay, I guess I have to rasterize it. So dumb. All right, there we go. Now I'll make it black and white. So I don't want any of that stuff. I just want this. Like this feels visually interesting to me. We can use that. Let's turn off this part here, and I'm wondering if we flip it a certain way, would that make a, you know, a nice kind of like a little bit of texture or something that we could use in the piece, because it is going at like an angle or something here, right? So that could be cool. And already I don't even like it, but you know, we could use it for certain things. I'm not sure, to be honest. So I think by stretching it, I kind of ruined it because I lost some of that. I don't know. There was something there. I kind of just lost it, actually. So there we go. So we'll actually turn that off. And then maybe instead what I want to do, and sometimes it's better to take like unlike things that like aren't on the ground. So like this actually isn't a ground. It's like a side of a wall. So maybe that's probably a better situation because you can get something that's a little bit more creative. So taking something that isn't necessarily supposed to be used for that could actually be really cool. So instead of using it on the side of the wall right here, the side of this piece right here, maybe I can just use it for something else. So let's paint on it. And I don't know why I still have to rasterize it. Usually if you use the brush, it will automatically rasterize it. But for now, not so much. So there we go. So this is one's cool because then we can kind of flip it. Maybe we'll flip it and stuff like that and kind of use it. And maybe we'll distort it a little bit. And hopefully what's going to happen is we're going to get some kind of unique happy accidents kind of thing going on. And already I feel like we're already kind of found maybe something that could be used. Let me move this over. So like that's kind of interesting in a way. I would probably have to erase from it. I'll flip it upside down just to kind of like make sure that like, oh, you know what? There you go. So maybe we'll distort it a little bit more. And we'll, there we go. So that's kind of cool, right? There's a little bit of a texture there. We could throw some noise on it. So, you know, the other part of me is like, well, let's just kind of throw some kind of strokes on it. And then maybe that will kind of help push it in one direction. You know, if I do want to soften it up, you know, that's always an option too. So to kind of keep it back to that same color, right, the same value right there, I may kind of just, you know, throw a little bit of a soft texture on there. And then I can always kind of erase like out of it if I want to. So then we have this, which is going to go on top of it technically. So now I have this, and that's going to help kind of reveal certain things about the piece, like that. So this in a way can kind of help cover up little inconsistencies, things like that. So we could roll with that, right? We could easily like do that. And then I can always kind of stamp out some things here and there. So this is a little bit more of like something you would see more in production, where you're just kind of making nicer shapes and then just kind of just pushing it on top of it. This isn't necessarily anything like super revolutionary, but it is fun when you get lucky and you can kind of throw some little mountain texture stamps here. So this is a good one that I like to use a lot, from John Park stuff. So there we go. And then we'll turn this back on. So there we go. So we have some things there. Maybe we can take that same thing. So actually what I want to do maybe is I want to erase from here, because I'm thinking that might be a better situation in general. So I'm going to not get that piece there. So I use stamp tool all the time. That's when I have like the thing already kind of set up. Then I'll use that. But normally, yeah, you don't necessarily have to. So, whoops, there you go. Cool. So yeah, stamp tool is great. Stamp tool is a totally great option. I just use it more when like I have to kind of further something. Like if I already have a good kind of photo bash set up already, then that's when I would use that. So here, I'm already gonna extend this. This is really cool to me, so I can actually take this and maybe kind of grab some more of the stamps here and kind of just move that around. And then obviously we can kind of paint in an additive or subtractive manner, kind of like that. And so hopefully what's gonna happen too is then we can kind of have this kind of blend in certain ways that will make that kind of visually interesting. So then we can also maybe grab like a texture here, another one that we can kind of stamp it in. And then we can easily throw another texture. We can throw another texture on there. So let's actually do that. So we have plenty of options here that I've already kind of worked out. So maybe we'll just grab something that's a little bit easier. Something that's simple. Something like that would probably read really nicely. Or actually, no, this is perfect. So we'll just draw this in there. And we'll have to make sure that we rasterize it. And we'll line that up there. And we're going to put that underneath all this stuff. And we'll make it black and white. And we're going to just do that. And so hopefully what we're going to do, though, too, is we're going to make that a little bit darker. So there's two ways we can do that. I'm just going to go with maybe just hue saturation and just turn the lightness down like that. There you go. And, you can erase from it. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to distort it a little bit so it kind of just goes in that direction a little bit more. And then now we can kind of paint over that. Maybe I think because the light is coming from that side, it might be nice to kind of have some nicer kind of gradations here. You know what I mean? So that's a really easy thing we can fix. You can do it one of two ways. I'm just going to paint directly on top of it. So I just have a kind of a soft texture brush here. And we're just going to move that around. And then here, I'm not quite so sure about the texture and how it's blending in quite, or this kind of snow idea, or it could be snow or sand, either or. But we're just kind of putting that in there, yeah? So we're just mountain stamp. Let's try 5. And this is where the rotation is really great, because I'm not necessarily like drawing it as a stroke. I'm stamping it and I'm rotating the brush within my fingers to find shapes that I like. And then once I kind of get that, I can easily just kind of erase in a way that will make it feel visually interesting. So again, we're kind of painting in a very kind of additive, we're stamping in a very additive manner, and then we're kind of making the strokes in a very subtractive manner. So you can already see like some of these little hints of like, I guess you could call it like rhythms that are kind of being made, because I'm painting it in a very subtractive manner. So that's what I'm trying to go for here, is I'm trying to still, like, you don't want to just stamp something. If I just stamp it, then who cares, right? That like, it's kind of whack. It doesn't really like I'm not putting my own like personality in there. So that's why painting in a very subtractive manner is really, really helpful here. Just because now the way that I'm erasing it, it feels like there's a lot more stuff in there. What are you looking for, baby? Is that shirt new?
Stitch Fix.
Stitch Fix? I like it. Why are you whispering again? Babe, you can say hi to this chat. It's fine. Okay, it's weird. All right, my wife is funny. All right. Anyways, I'm hideous. All right, so this is me trying to kind of push in a little bit of that juice in there. And you can kind of see these rhythms already happening. So if I were to show it to you, in my head, what I'm thinking about is like, how do I get these certain rhythms to kind of help like read, like help the piece read a little bit better. So you see a rhythm kind of like right here. There's that rhythm that I've made in a very subtractive manner. There's that rhythm right there. There's that rhythm right here. There's, let me see. There's this rhythm right here. There's that rhythm, right? There's all kinds of nice rhythms that are happening here. And I want to make sure that I can kind of keep those rhythms throughout the piece. So in my head, as I'm making that stroke, it's important that I try to not get too, I guess the word is maybe like to autopilot mode. That's a very kind of common thing when you're using photos and stuff, is like, I'm just going to just put something down and, you know, whatever happens, happens. I'm trying my best to not have that be the case, right? Because if you do that, then you kind of lose your voice, and then your piece doesn't have as much value, to me at least. Like, you want something that's kind of very juicy, very like, it's cool. It has a nice kind of look and feel to it. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And sometimes you just have to use a good old brush, right? You can go as far as you want, but then sometimes just using a brush can actually, you know, solve a lot of these problems. And maybe if I go to eraser brush, right, I can find, and if for some reason it's not working, using a big brush to kind of erase, or a big brush to kind of put in a shape, is the best thing you can do, just because it's you're starting off big and then you work your way small. So that's all I'm doing here, is just kind of, eventually if I like something, then I can make the brush a little bit smaller, so then I can find some of these strokes that I like. Because maybe I don't want this to be too maybe I don't want there to be too much texture, just because of the fact that it might be too distracting. So maybe that's what I'm looking for instead, right? You can kind of see that happening. And there's a nice kind of like rhythm here that I would like to kind of utilize, but it may not be in the cards. So maybe the form here is kind of turning a little bit. Cool. And if for some reason I like that, then what I can do is then I can go in here and I can kind of add that gradation as well, because I want the light to kind of come from this side, you know? So now I can kind of lower the opacity of my brush, and I can say, hey, you know, I want this to kind of blend in a little bit, like so. And then I can do the same here, right? I can make sure that all these little pieces here are all having a nice kind of, you know, graphical read. So maybe I want some of these rhythms to go a different direction, you know. And I also got to think about whether or not I want this, some of these subtractive manners to be hard or soft. So maybe I go in here instead, and now I use a softer brush here to kind of simulate that it's going to be something a little bit, right, like that. And then I can kind of paint it back in certain areas. So that's a good way to kind of help sell this idea of like softer kind of snow, is to use a soft brush to erase, and then you kind of just put it back in there. So look at that. Now we're getting all this kind of interesting texture that you wouldn't have normally got, and now we can use this brush here. We'll lower the opacity and hopefully now it kind of creates this nice little like layer of detail. Yeah. You know, if I want to kind of maybe do some more here, there's some nice darks, some super nice darks that are really cool. Maybe we can also kind of build upon that. So that could be just, you know, taking some of that like that, you know what I mean? Like going in there and putting in some of those darks will help kind of just shape the form a little bit more. So you can do stuff like that too. It's totally up to you. Sometimes I'll kind of go in there, right? And I'll just kind of throw in that stamp. And this is where layers are like super helpful because now you can you can kind of make a gradation with it a little bit. So, I mean, not the best, but you can erase from it a little bit if you want to, and it will just kind of give it a little bit more of a stylization if that's what you're going for. So sometimes when I do this, I'll probably just stamp it usually, just something like that. And I'm just trying to kind of find like, you know, little hints there. So that could totally work, right? And then all we got to do is just lock the transparency, maybe drag like a lighter brush on it, and then that's kind of cool, right? You can kind of see, or probably the opposite direction or something like that. So there you go. All right, dude. I'll see you fits. Take care, bro. So now we have this extra texture in here, and now we can actually even paint on top of it. So now it kind of feels like it's cutting into the form a little bit more. So there's all kinds of cool things happening here, right? Like it's actually like working out pretty well, considering where we were at before. So those little textures all look good. Like I'm liking where it's going. So we can kind of keep it moving. So, you know, maybe we want to throw in a little bit more of some, like we can make this a little bit more of a lighter value, or a kind of a softer edge to kind of just really drive that point home like that. So that could be kind of cool. If you go to this guy, I'm probably not going to make an extra layer for it. I'm just going to go straight into it, like screw it. And we'll just kind of use a one brush. Not that light, but see this, and then we can just kind of paint out of it, just because we don't need to have all that detail. Yeah. So that would be, whoops. So maybe this one we want to have it a little bit darker towards the bottom than the top. So right there, I'm just kind of making like a nice gradation. And I'm just kind of trying to call it a day. But I wouldn't do that until like I got like the actual shape down. So there's that too. So this might be a little bit of like a pain because of the angle that I'm trying to kind of get here. So I'm trying my best to, if I go this way, this has to kind of float in this direction here. So I'm thinking of the counterbalance here in terms of a composition. So I want the strokes to kind of really help create this kind of idea of counterbalance, but the texture has to read as well. So right now, like the strokes like they're not really doing anything for me. And so that's like a missed opportunity that I have to kind of fix. So we'll see what we can do. So by taking a rake brush, I'm hoping that by kind of making like this little texture, it helps kind of instill that a little bit more, is what I'm thinking it does. And it kind of does it a little bit. But now I'm thinking, well, maybe what I can do too to help that out is maybe if I take a texture, the mountain. So I'll go back to that trusty mountain stamp, and I can go in there, and so right there, so I can just maybe stamp that out. And so now that kind of already looks like it's far away. So that's actually relatively lucky, to be honest. And maybe we'll just, so I'm not sure which one I want to use yet, to be honest. So maybe we just want that to be a nice little kind of grainy texture. And then we'll go back to the brush and we'll paint the rest out. So we'll go back to like a 34, right? 34 texture lob. And we'll kind of just soften some of that stuff up a little bit. So there we go. So not too bad. It could be worse. And then, you know, how high do we want this to go up is the question, right? So we could have this kind of go like pretty far up. And we just paint it out, right? There's plenty of ways we can kind of take this guy. So maybe this part right here is instead I kind of just make this like, I just kind of paint it in manually and we just go from there. So it depends what we want to do with it, right? And so, Rishi brings up a good point of extending the canvas a little bit there, because obviously we could probably make this more wide. But unfortunately, I'm already kind of set in my layout here, just because I want this to look, I already have it split up into 4 kind of aspect ratios, so I'm kind of stuck with it. But normally what would probably happen is, let's say that then the boss, likes it and says, hey, I like what's happening here, is really, really cool. Then I would consider, okay, you know what, now that he's picked one, I can go and extend it. So it's a good thought in particular. But now I'm looking at it as a whole. So we don't want to look at it as individual. It's kind of a weird thing. Like, layout is also kind of like a composition in itself. So like, I want this to look good as a whole, like all 4 of these to look nice, like together, you know what I mean? So if I extend one and make it look nice, but then all of them kind of have to do the same thing. So I have to be careful about whether or not, I have to weigh the options right there. I have to look at that and go, okay, is that worth extending the canvas and then having to do it with every single one? And maybe it is. So maybe that's the question that we have to kind of take a look at together. And go, you know what, maybe I should extend the canvas a little bit. So, it probably wouldn't actually hurt, because actually these ones could definitely be extended. So it probably could work. But this one's actually a little bit higher, actually. So what probably needs to happen, honestly, is we have to do this, because they're actually not the same size, because I kind of messed up in the beginning. Is it has to be like a little bit lower. like that. That's actually like true to size now. So that actually might have fixed the problem in a way. And we'll leave that there for now. So that could be a thing that we do later. So good observation. So cool. Long arm, gotta go. Thanks for streaming. Appreciate it, dude. Thanks for coming by, dude. Appreciate it. So now I can add a little bit more of like, the samey kind of strokes here to kind of help push it in a certain direction. And I'm hoping that some of these strokes will then help kind of have this piece kind of, just read in a very different way. And I can always just erase as well, like so. So when in doubt, we wanna add our own voice. Very, very rarely do we want to just throw in a texture and not have anything to say about it. That's usually no bueno. We don't want that at all. So kind of cool. It's all right. But this is why we do a bunch of these. So like in theory, like I would do so many of these until like I found one that I really, really like. So this is a little bit slower than what I would probably normally paint at too. So there's that whole situation. But I think it's a good demonstration of like how I would go about doing some thumbnails if I was doing this for a client or something. Or these are actually good warm-ups too. Probably longer than I would like in terms of warm-up, but there's still some value in this if you do it if you do it very quickly. So cool. We're almost done here, so I'll wrap this up. I appreciate people for coming by. I really appreciate it. Tuesdays at 8, not all the time. Just just come check my Facebook. And if I'm streaming if it's like 8:10 and I'm not streaming, then I'm probably just not doing it that day. For whatever reason. I could be busy, I could have stuff going on. But normally it should be Tuesdays at 8. If you want stuff critiqued, then you just gotta message me in the chat at some point in time, and we'll take a look at it and see what we can do. But I had a couple of followers today. I appreciate it, and we're gonna probably finish this up. I'll probably maybe render this a little bit offline. I don't know what I'd actually would do. I probably would maybe fix a few of these strokes, but like super minimal stuff here. And then I'll post it and then call it a day. But yeah, if you're following, I appreciate it, and hope y'all are having a good week so far. All right, let's see. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything, which I know I'm not. Okay, yeah, I'm not missing shit. I'm good. I want to go back to those clouds actually, but I can't. So right now I'm just kind of stamping here. I'm stamping stuff like here and there. So that's all that I'm trying to do, is get some of that texture there. So the smart thing to do would be just to actually just just copy and paste it, but I don't want to. I want to see if I can actually maybe just recreate it, or at least kind of simulate it, so that way like the human eye kind of looks at it and just kind of views it as the same thing. So if I can trick the viewer into thinking that it's like the same kind of thing, but it's not, then I think we're in a good spot. So here, let's we're gonna go back to this brush. We'll go to this brush right here, and we're probably gonna paint a little bit of this stuff out. So there we go, ever so slightly. Cool. This guy back here, we're definitely gonna have to mix a little bit of like a lighter value here, because I want this to kind of blend in just a little bit, you know? So that's it. That's all that's all we're doing right here, is we're just wanting that to kind of blend in a little bit more. Not bad. Not bad for technically like an hour, though I probably would spend like more time on it. But yeah, I think mission accomplished. Cool. All right, I'm gonna head out of here because I'm gonna have some dinner with my lovely wife, and I'll see you guys back here. If you like the stream today or whatever, it will be recorded so you can watch it later for your viewing pleasure. If you go to my YouTube channel, just type in my name, it will be there, or my Twitch, or come back here. But if you like it, just share it with someone. I'm sure someone could use it. Yeah, no need to like, favorite, and subscribe unless you want to. I don't think you even can. But this is just a place for me to kind of make myself do some things, because I get busy with work all the time. Alrighty. Okay, guys. I will save it here, and I will let you guys go. So who is actually in here? Let me check real quick before I be saying goodbye. Alice. Alice Tang. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank y'all for watching, dude. Take care, and peace out. See you, Rishi. See you, Long Arm. See you, Fitz. I'll see you guys later, man. Peace. We are out.